Okay, back to fenders. The plan is to make hoop fenders for the big tires. I've already got my hoops made with my manual tube bender, but what I still need to do is make the inner fender wells, and I want to do that out of 16 gauge steel. That's a little bit heavy for a fender, heavier than necessary, but I really want some extra protection against a high-speed blowout. I don't know if you've ever seen a trailer on the side of the road, a camper that is, where there's a high-speed blowout and the blown out tire just whipping around just takes out the entire side of the camper. I really don't want that to happen to this. So my issue is that while 16 gauge isn't impossible to bend, it is going to be difficult to get it to match a tight, smooth radius like this. I've been staring at it for a while, trying to figure out how I'm going to do it with my limited tool set. And what I've come up with is, I think, what would be considered a combination between a slip roller and a press brake. And I think I'm going to make that out of treadmill parts. So, no idea if this is going to work, but I'm going to give it a try. Just kind of whip it together. It's only got to make 4 bends. And I guess if it doesn't work, you'll probably never see this video. Okay, worked really well, except that it didn't. Um, the functionality, it bends sheet metal super easy in a really nice, smooth way. My only problem is that I can't quite. This is my cheater for a 55. That is the angle, and I just can't quite get it. I've tried a couple of things, spread out my rollers, tried to do multiple bends, but I just can't quite get it close. I thought there would be a lot more spring back, but with the biggest chunk of wood that I had, or the biggest anything that I had, for the top radius was a 4x4 post. So when I turned that down on the lathe, it got down to 3.5. But it matches 3.5 perfectly. And measuring the diameter of my tube bender for this tubing, it would be right about 7 inches. So I've got to figure out something to increase the diameter of my upper die. And I think if I had actually made this a roller, like these lower two are, I could have used it like a slip roller. I could kind of get a couple of maybe my front and back part of the bend, and then use it like a slip roller to kind of rock it back and forth to smooth it out. But I only had 2 rollers, so that's kind of what I was saying, is that this is a combination of a press brake and a slip roller. So I'm gonna go mow the lawn and think about what I can do to increase the diameter of that upper die. Went to the store to try and find a bigger diameter die, I guess, for lack of a better term, for my press brake slip roller treadmill project. The only thing I could find that's even close is waste pipe. This is a 6-inch diameter, which means the OD is about 6 1/4. So I just need to figure out how to attach it to my cobble job here. Alright, took a couple tries, but with my little many times spent and straightened sheet metal tester, that's pretty darn close. So now I get to try it with the actual big sheet. All right, Mark 3 of the press brake slip roller fender bender. The fender bender is ready to try. You saw in the last version my idea of a giant dowel, just kind of screwed into a larger drain pipe. Didn't quite have enough rigidity. Once I got the full 15-inch width of the fender in there, there was just too much pressure and it started to deform the outer tube. So in this version, what I've done is cut out 2 3/4-inch pieces of plywood that fit the inner diameter of the pipe perfectly. They're held in with a couple of T-nuts on the back side, and hopefully this will just give it enough rigidity for the full width of the fender once I start putting all the pressure of the jack on. Okay, you can see I have my hoop fenders and the fender as close as I can get them, but unfortunately that's still not quite close enough. I really can't figure out a way to get these two bends to line up. So I think what's going to happen is I'm going to end up probably cutting out the corner and welding up one half, and then welding up the other half, and then welding the seam in the middle. I had a few $1,000s worth of tools, that'd probably be easy, but not in my garage. The more I kind of mess around with it, the more I realize I really can't do the fenders easily. Well, I can't actually do the fenders easily, period. But without having the rub rail in place that ties it into the rear bumper, because this is the spot where the tube fender is gonna attach, and without that it's really hard to do the inner fenders. So I've been putting off this back kind of quarter panel section because I just don't know how I want to tie it into the rear bumper, but I think I have some ideas. I'm just gonna have to go through and start doing my tube bending without a tube bender to try and bring it over and get some of the angles and see how they look. Okay, I've got my rear rub rail done. All I did was come out with a straight section, and then I did my little pie cutting tube bender without a tube bender, just to get a radius that would blend in with this flat face in the corner. I think in a future project I will probably try and add another tube somehow to give a little more protection to this rear quarter, but that is not important right now, so that'll be a future project. Okay, I don't know how many times I stopped and restarted and tried to come up with a new idea, but I've got one fender done, and scrapping pretty much all the footage I did of it because I started over so many times trying to figure out how to do this. You would think this would be one of the easier jobs. Is how hard can some fenders be? But boy, I don't know. Making the consistent wide bend to match the tube, and then how to attach everything together and make it square. So yeah, I will record the second one now that I kind of have what I'm going to do figured out. Alright, got the tires back on it, sitting in the new fenders, looking pretty sweet. The reason I've got my tires on is because the next step is to figure out my shock placement. I've got it started on this side. Basically, once I figured out where everything would line up, I just poked a hole in the top of the fender, with a nice vertical travel. The lower mounts are tacked in to the axle, and then after this I get to reinforce the top so that it can handle all the shocking. After that, I think I'm going to end up having to pull out the axle one last time. I've got some finish welding for my upper hats here. Got to get a reinforcing plate on either side of these, trim off all these big honking U-bolts, and then finish weld my perches to the axle. And while it's all out, I think I'll probably clean it up and give it a coat of paint, which is really exciting because that'll be the first thing on this trailer that's getting a finish coat. Super stiff. Really stopped the trailer from bouncing around a lot already. But I was a little bit stuck with how to do this because I had to make the fender well first. So all I did was make the fender well and then poke a hole in the fender where everything lined up, and then built the shock tower kind of within that space. So turned a little bit better than I thought. And the old scrap treadmill came through again. All right, fenders. Who would have thunk that the fenders would have been the most challenging part of this whole project? From the making the hoops to the sheet metal to match to the mounts to the shock mounts. It was way more behind the scenes thinking and trying things than actually comes across in the video. So in this one, it was a huge project, but not a lot to show because we just made fenders. But that hurdle is out of the way now. So the next steps, the next thing on the menu is we have a family camping trip that's been on the books for quite a while, coming up in a couple of weeks. And it's not an off-road thing or anything like that. It's just a state park. But I think what we're going to do is try to get this thing habitable for a few days, just so that we can try it out. Like, we've never actually slept in it or worked with anything in a pull behind like this. So it's going to be a little bit of a test in that regard, just to see what we think. Probably give us some insights on things that we want to do before we get all committed and finish the inside out. But really the thing that's on my mind is I want to get this thing on the highway, on the road, and see how it does behind a vehicle. I want to know what all the changes we've made to the underpinnings are going to do for drivability, for mileage. How does it go down the road? How does it handle bumps? Can I see pulling it off road? All those questions like that. So I really want to get that part tested and put my brain to bed that we did the right thing. So what that means is the next steps, that now that the fenders are in, are the floors. We've got to finish the two main floor sections. So we've got the tail section, that's the structural piece, and then the main standing floor in the middle where you actually stand on it. Those will be big projects because they're both very large layups, but I feel like we're pretty comfortable with what that'll involve. So time consuming and challenging, but I don't think it's anything that's impossible. And then once the floors are in, that leaves us, we do need to put the furniture back in, because the furniture is structural for the roof. So we'll put that in. I can't imagine we'll finish anything out, but we'll slap it in. And probably the hardest part of that will be swapping out all of the rivets for the nuts and bolts and neoprene washers. So lots coming up, and it's probably be a mad dash to get this done in a couple weeks, but I'm really excited to actually put it into use and test out my theories. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.